and or when you learn with your children. This was the hardest lesson, by the way. The rest of it's not gonna, I'm not saying it's easy, but this whispering thing is the most difficult part of the whole spiel. So I'm glad you felt it was clear. Um, some of you did at least. So the 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 way you present it to kids, in other words, as an eighth grade Rebbe myself, over the years, very often, like the kids would get frustrated. I tried to create an environment where anybody was able to ask anything. I really was very important to me. Excuse me. I told the kids, if you have any question, um, very good. Thank you, Adam. Great question. This is exactly what we're talking about. If you were somewhat turned off by Gemara, what's the best way to inspire your kids to hopefully enjoy it if you weren't able to do so by example? Fantastic. So Adam, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. This is very helpful for me. I did note in the communication about the talks that it would be very helpful to folks who did not have a pleasant Gemara experience. And I think when turned off could mean like the relevancy piece or some other parts of that. I would encourage you to hopefully get more comfortable as we go on. Get more comfortable yourself. I hope that you'll come to appreciate it for what it is. It's possible, some types of learning profiles don't really work that way, but I'm kind of getting to it now. So I was doing a class. One of the things, so the kids used to ask me in class, like they'd raise their hand and say, Rebbe, why do we need to know this? Like, what's the point? And I used many different tools to explain to the children how this works. One of the examples that I gave was constitutional law, okay? And I would almost always, every day, whenever we start, or certainly when we started a new subject, I always had something on the board. There was always something for the kids to look at when they walked in. Adam, I didn't know you were going to ask this, but here's something that one of the hundreds and hundreds of tools, of learning tools that I had in my classroom. There are a number of Gemaras that talk about boundaries between cities. One example is it talks about the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge, and it's extremely granular Gemara. And the kids who were comfortable, the kids who were comfortable that I made feel comfortable enough, I hope it was everybody, used to roll their eyes something awful when I got to this Gemara. I'm giving this as an example. So the Gemara talks about an Ir Miklat, a city of refuge. If somebody killed accidentally, they had to run away to an Ir Miklat, a city of refuge, and the relative of the person who was killed, if this person didn't take it seriously and was horsing around and left the city, the relative was allowed to kill him. That's the story. So the Gemara talks about what happens if at the edge of the city line there's a tree, and the trunk of the tree is inside and the branches are outside, or vice versa. I see the kids rolling their eyes right now. So one of the things that I would do, Adam, is I tried to make it as relevant as possible. One example that I would give, when I would start talking about this, I would say, hey guys, any of you live on the border between Monsey and Spring Valley? So, Monsey is a general term for this area. Spring Valley is a town of Monsey near Monsey that has a different jurisdiction. So I said, guys, how do they plow the streets if you live near the border? So the kids crack up. They say, yeah, the Ramaphosa, the Monsey truck comes and goes to the edge of the line, shoves the snow back, turns around and goes. And they would talk about how it worked. And I would give other examples. And here, this is actually a state line journal, 2 states divided by, I found this in the Times. Look, this was 1998. I happened to be a little more on the creative side. Adam, learning wasn't such a great experience for me, if I want to be honest. And I picked this up in 1998. So but I always had my eye open whenever I read something that would be relevant to class. So here it talks about the border between Illinois and Indiana runs right smack through the community in the corn country. So here's somebody who phones a neighbor across the street, pays out of town charges you. You just dated yourself. And when you walk across the street, you change time zones. Okay, it's an hour later on the Indiana side. And it talks about how the history of the street, we consider ourselves one time, we're not. It's confusing. In fact, if I remember correctly, it actually discusses sometimes the borders went through houses. Does it go by the bedroom or does it go by if not, this was another one. So this is like a practical example. If any of you are interested, especially if you follow sports, you can look up on YouTube, look up Limud football, Limud. I'll type it. I happen to know the young man who did it. I stayed in his house when I was lecturing in one of the cities. He's actually in the army now. Limud football. This young man, he was like 15, 16 when he did it. I'm sorry, this is private, excuse me. How do I respond here? Just a moment. Excuse me. I just wanted to write a few. Okay. Limud football. You can look it up yourself. He has, I'm responding privately. Sorry, I don't know how to get, wait a minute, just a moment. Everyone in meeting, here we go. Sorry, okay. Limud football, there are some videos on there where this guy brilliantly uses the out of bounds in a football game to talk about the laws of Shabbos. The laws of Shabbos, you hand off stuff from a private property, from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah to the public property. And there's a Mishnah, several Mishnahs and Gemara that talk about what happens if your hand is in one domain and your feet are in another domain, which is exactly how football, it comes into play. And parenthetically, I used to use that example, by the way, in my class. And the rules of the end zone are different than sidelines. On the end zone, it goes by you break the plane if it crossed the goal line anywhere, even in the air. And in football, if your feet are in, take a look at it. It's just another way of taking these situations that are listed in the Gemara that are not, that people are not familiar with. It's not in their wheelhouse. You really have an opportunity to bring them into the discussion. I was once doing a talk and someone asked me about someone who was not familiar with Gemara at all. True story, like the question was, why are they talking about oxen that much? The Gemara talks about someone came home, it was actually a woman was there, and she said, my son comes home from yeshiva, she said, and he picks up the phone for 45 minutes, he's talking about the ox did this, the ox did this. She said, what are they talking about? They all look the same. Right? So I told her, I gave her a practical example. So I said, look, what happens if I told her, what happens if you go to the store, you put groceries in your trunk of your car, you let go of the cart, it breaks my headlight. It rolls down the hill and breaks the headlight of my car. Are you responsible? You'll say, I didn't do anything. I just let my hands go. And I'll say, yeah, but you knew it was going to roll. Now, what happens if it's a windy day? Are you more or less responsible? Are you more or less likely to be responsible? Okay, you'll say it could be more responsible because you knew that it was a windy day. The one who did the damage would say it's not my fault. It just pulled it out of my hand. So that's a dispute. That by the way, in English we call this tort law, right? It's law about damages, which Baba with some of them Gemaras are about. So I asked the person, did you find this of interest? He said, yeah. I said, what happens if your cart didn't do the damage? How about if your cart had a bottle of milk in there, it rolled down the hill and the cart fell and the milk jumped up and splattered in my suit? So it's a secondary damage. Would you be interested in going to a class on that? She said, yeah, it sounds very interesting. So I said, that's what they're talking about, right? They didn't have parking lots and cars. They parked their ox that they brought to the marketplace to schlep their stuff home. And the problem is the cars moved around there. So what the Gemara is talking about is an example of this. Now, the fact of the matter is, our kids or ourselves would probably not find the oxen thing very interesting. So I really encourage you as parents, when you're learning with the kids, or especially in response to Adam's question, when you're trying to make the learning more interesting and enjoyable for your kids, try to bring in more color to the canvas. I suggest that this is what I tell parents to do. If you're able to look at that Gemara and think of some practical examples, so you could really make it come alive in a way that will have them looking forward to discussing the Gemara with you. Constitutional law was something that I also used to do. If there was ever an article in the paper about something that went to the Supreme Court, so I would bring it up. In other words, for example, I would talk about let's say the right to bear arms. Okay, so there's a whole dispute whether or not people are allowed to have machine guns, right? Could they ban machine guns? So it was a nebuch after these terrible tragedies. You see it in the news a lot. So I would. This is what I used to do. I used to bring in a clip of the Constitution, where it says that they have a right to bear arms, and I would say, well, what do you think, guys? I always did this before I started the Gemara. I would say, guys, do you think that this allows a machine gun? So some will say, well, look at it. It just doesn't say what kind of bear arms. They didn't have machine guns at the time. And you see, it says that there's a militia, so it's only to protect themselves, not an offensive weapon. So this is, the type of discussion that, the children sometimes, if they're rolling their eyes, it's sort of like disrespecting. I don't mean they're doing anything wrong, they're kids. But like they'll look at it and say, why do I need to learn this? You bring where you have these scholars that the whole country respects, the people on the Supreme Court and the regular judges, and they evaluate if how the law was written, the Constitution was written 200 and something years ago, and it's a vibrant document that's alive, and it becomes alive because we discuss relevant situations. And, I give them examples. I bring them a tshuva from Rav Moshe Feinstein writing about electricity, which wasn't around when the Gemara was there. So all of these things, you can try to generate interest in a Gemara with something that the kids might not find that enjoyable in the first place. Okay, folks, that's it for tonight. Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow night, we're back on at 9:30. And I'm actually going to start walking you through the Gemara, the actual Gemara lesson, and I'll just show you ahead that this is our Right Beginnings book, and the shiurim of Gemara itself are really very user friendly. I actually have a few more pre-lessons to do that I want to talk about, but we'll get to it tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem. We're going to finish some other background information. Tomorrow we're actually going to do the various components of logic. We have a system for this. Someone asked me about the Bright Beginnings Gemara. So far we have a full year of brachas, of elements of most yeshivas start either with brachos, tfilas hashachar, or elementziyas. So far, we have a full year of beginner Gemara brachas. There's 2 books. You can look on Amazon, look up Bright Beginnings. Rabbi Spivak is the author. I think I'm listed there as a co-author or a merely publisher. So you can you can Google it that way, or you can go to brightbeginnings.com. You can find our stuff there also. Okay, folks, I'll see you all tomorrow. I really hope you found it helpful. Feel free, it's events at thebrightbeginnings.com. If you have any questions or things that you'd like to cover or any feedback that you'd like to give, I'm always open to listening. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Just one question.
Yes, please.
So basically, my Zoom wasn't working in the beginning, so I finally decided to call in, and then I saw that the Zoom was that it was going on. So I'm just curious how much I missed.
So from 9:30 till now, like from 9:35, it's going to be on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Yaakov Horowitz, If you go to YouTube and you look up Yaakov Horowitz, you'll have my YouTube channel. As soon as it's downloaded, it'll be up online. I post everything up on YouTube. So this whole class will be up on YouTube within a couple of hours. Okay, so
Okay, thank
feel free to look
you
it
so
up.
much.
I hope you found it helpful. And not you. I mean, I hope you find it helpful when you watch it. Okay, I mean, I purposely do it this way. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Wonderful night. Thank you.